got diamonds on the inside, sparkling from within.
Hey, I'm Sara.
And I'm Trish.
This is Trying to Win.
It's our podcast about being lawyers, being trial lawyers. Together, Sara and I have been doing this almost 50 years, trying cases in North Carolina and surrounding states, and started this podcast to share stories, talk about interesting things related to the law in our practice, and I don't know.
Yeah, generally that kind of stuff. Today, we're going to cover how much the practice of law has changed over the last year with so many things going to the virtual appearances. And to help us talk about that today, we have two of our very own Lincoln Derr lawyers with us, Heather Fuller and Phoebe Coddington. We're super excited to have them here. They've been participating in all sorts of virtual things that have introduced themselves into our legal practices. So we are going to talk about that today.
Well, I guess what they're going to talk about really is the tips and tricks and the to-dos and the don't-dos of the virtual world. So our format, and that really was our opening statement this time, but our format is to kind of provide an opening statement, give the listeners a view or forecast of where we're headed, get into the meat of it, talk about the examinations, the evidence, talk about what we're here to talk about the Zooming and the virtual appearances, and then to wrap it up in a little bow with closing. And then, of course, we'll await your verdict, and we hope that you rate and review us and listen to our podcast.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this topic because we think it's a particularly important right now because of where we are in COVID. We're not sure what the practice of law is going to look like once we kind of come out of this time period. So Phoebe and Heather are here, but first, why don't y'all each kind of just give us a little bit of background on you, how many years you've been in practice, those sorts of things?
Oh, man. You want us to talk about how long we've been practicing?
Talk about you for a minute. Talk about
we
you.
We want you to be like looking as old as we are, but that's probably not going to happen.
No.
I'm Phoebe Coddington. I've been practicing since 2007, if you consider clerking for federal judges practicing.
Yes.
Did that for 3 years before I went into private practice. Worked for a large national law firm and then joined Lincoln Derr 3 years ago next week. It's been a great transition.
Wow.
Happy anniversary early.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I'm Heather Fuller. I really need a podcast to talk about how long I've been practicing and where I was practicing. And
we're going to do that.
About. So I'll save that for later. I'll say it's been about 10-ish years in practice over a very extended period of time.
Excellent.
So that's
We're
the
glad
short
to have
story.
You. Glad to have both
we're
of y'all.
really excited to have you guys.
So do we ask a question first, or are you just going to jump on?
Whatever you like.
All right. Well, how about this? We've been
What's
in
up?
virtual practice of law now for almost exactly 1 year as of today's recording. How has that been for you guys?
Well, luckily with our firm being as technologically savvy as we've been, it hasn't
nice
been
plug.
too much of a learning curve, I'd say. I mean, there's definitely been things that we've had to learn, things that we've had to become more facile at, but it's been relatively successful so far. I mean, the courts have moved to primarily the WebEx platform, which is my least favorite. Most meetings are done by Zoom, some by Teams.
Well, Zoom has the touch up my appearance.
I know, I love that.
WebEx does not.
Yeah, it's not fair.
And it works too anyway.
It does.
It gives you this glowing, lovely appearance.
I know.
love Zoom.
I do too. I love Zoom.
I haven't found that button. There's another one, Cisco, or is that WebEx?
That's WebEx.
That's the WebEx one. Okay. All right.
It has the touch up my appearance?
It does not.
I know.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
that's the
saying.
problem.
I was trying
That's
to
the
find
problem.
that button and it didn't exist.
And it doesn't.
Right. So for the courts, we can't, glamorize ourselves
No.
as much.
No.
It's
It's
a
a
But
bummer.
you can
It's
do
like-
the lighting, and that helps a lot.
Like what?
With
The Loom Cube or
the Loom Cube,
the other
or
things
any
you can
kind of
put
thing
on.
that you can put on. It significantly changes your appearance one way or the other.
So for our listeners who may not be familiar with the Loom Cube, can one of you just kind of give a description of what it is?
I mean, it's just a very bright light that goes right into your eyes and brightens your entire face. They come in different forms, but you can snap them or hook them on some way in the back of the screen that you're looking at. And, they say it's all about the lighting. Truly, on this platform, it's all about the lighting.
Really, you don't want to have backlight behind you. It's extremely distracting, or even the glow. Having it on the front of your face which might be distracting for you, but is not for other people,
Right.
Is a much better vision. I mean, you can see that with newscasters when you
Yep.
kind of back up a little bit from the camera and see all the lights that they have on them. There's a reason for it. And most of these lights are diffused, so it's softer and it
Right.
makes your appearance look better.
Do you think that that having the light or, being able to see more clearly, do you think that helps in terms of the way that you're communicating or your ability to express emotion or thoughts in a good way or maybe a bad way?
I think it's better. I think when people can see you and see your expressions, it's more persuasive than otherwise. I mean, you don't want to be the I am a cat or I am not a cat guy. Because
That's the dude the lawyer who got on and somehow somebody tinkered with his background or
his assistant's child had put on a filter on the Zoom and he didn't know how to change it. So when he showed up to a hearing, he was literally looked like a cat and had to explain to the court and opposing counsel, who somehow didn't laugh during this, that he is not a cat.
The court didn't laugh? The judge didn't? Oh, that's a scary
They did
judge.
a little giggle afterwards, but I think they were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because everybody knows not everybody's good at technology, but
I think they probably knew that he was a gentleman who was well into his 70s and probably wasn't very technologically savvy. So
It wasn't really.
Where is that filter? I looked. I didn't see a filter. Was that Zoom?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to find, actually.
Do you think that's real?
I haven't looked for it, so I have no idea.
Do we think this whole thing was real?
As I understand it, yes, it was real. Yes, because
I'm gonna
we actually
Google that.
looked into having the cat guy on the podcast.
Oh, that's right.
We did.
I remember
Yeah,
that now. Well, okay. Maybe it's real. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, you don't want to be whatever. There was another one with a guy that was a pumpkin or something that I saw on YouTube somewhere.
You've seen people sideways as well because they're using their iPad or something and they've got it the wrong angle and they can't figure out how to right side it. I mean, there are all sorts of issues that come up and you've got to be pretty quick at trying to change those.
Do you have any recommendations about whether you should use, I know we're a Mac, but do laptops versus iPhone or iPad? Because I think my phone has a better camera on it than my MacBook. But anyway, I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Oh, I've always found it better to be on your laptop than a personal device because it's the angle that makes a big difference as to how you see the person coming through. And I think it's much more effective on that. And there's too much movement on those smaller devices that make it more distracting.
I'll throw out a little piece of advice that I think is helpful. So I have a laptop stand in my office because I use a separate keyboard and I put my laptop on the stand. We have dual monitors in our offices. And now for virtual depositions, I've started bringing that stand in for my witnesses so that we're not looking up their nose, and it's a much more pleasing appearance if you can lift it up a little bit so that you're not looking down with, creating double chins and all of that. I don't know. Do y'all do that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's
switched
space.
mine to my large monitor, so it's already at a better level.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I never
use
do
my.
it.
I don't use it off my laptop. I use it off the camera on my.
Is that a better camera?
Larger.
I think it's a better
monitor in the
angle.
office,
Yeah.
and then at home I have actually an HD camera connected to my larger monitor. That's a much better camera than even what's on on our MacBook Pros. Yeah.
Well, isn't that nice?
But the
I might have to do
phones and the iPads are a problem. I was on a Zoom board meeting this morning before we came here, and there was a lawyer who literally was in a recliner and had his phone or his iPad in his lap, and we were literally looking up his nose as he was reclined in his recliner. And I thought, do you not have this set up so you can see yourself? Like if you saw yourself like that, I would hope that you would correct that.
I don't know. In a deposition 2 days ago, one of the lawyers took her whatever she was using around and started lying down on a chaise lounge. And by the end, she was completely prone while questioning the witness. Tips not to do.
Yeah, don't do that.
Kidding.
Well, I was on a Zoom meeting last night, and there was one of the participants on her phone, and she literally was walking around her entire house. I saw her entire house during the call.
I have seen a laundry basket in the background. And and people laying on their beds.
Well, and it was distracting because she
because she's
was
moving.
So you could see things whipping by her. I would not do that.
Much better just to turn the camera off while you're moving around. It's not hard. It's a very easy button just by the mute button, which most people know by now how to do.
Oh my God, no. If I don't ever hear that phrase again, can you hear me? You're muted.
Oh, I do it all the time. I'm sorry.
It drives me crazy.
It's me. I'm guilty. But it's because actually what happens is sometimes the people that are on the other end are muting me. Like they can mute you and then you can't talk. And I'm like, I'm unmuted. I swear I am. But
dear.
Yeah, it's not
what kind of security concerns have you guys talked about with your clients or even just, within the office?
Well, I think that's why the court uses WebEx.
Is it more secure? Is that what they say? Because they were having like Zoom people. What do you call them? Like
you can Zoom
photo bomb or bomb. Yeah.
Zoom bombing.
Yeah. So WebEx is better.
I think so. I think Teams has more security and certain clients require that.
But the problem with the more secure is that it takes a larger bandwidth.
Yeah.
So I have a real hard time doing WebEx at home instead of in the office. And even with Teams today that we were using with a client, there was a lot of delay with one of the lawyers that was speaking with Teams. And that, again, is a bandwidth issue. Although there should have been plenty, there was still some kind of technological issues.
Yeah. So for Heather and I who have gamers in the house, make sure they are ungamed before you get on the online, right, for the video meetings.
What do you do if you're having a connection problem? Like, have y'all run into that where you've been in a mediation or a deposition or even a court hearing where somebody's had to do something to
People
fix
drop
that?
off sometimes, or the audio is going out. The court reporter is constantly saying, "Stop! This is the last word I got." It's an issue. It breaks up their ability to have some continuity in their argument. If it's a hearing or questioning a witness, I think that's one of the downsides.
Yeah.
If you're on the opposite side of that, it just turned into a plus side. So it depends on how you look at it.
Do you think it makes a difference if you are in person at something and other people are there live? Do you think that makes a difference?
You mean if other people are Zoomed and you're live, or vice versa?
Yeah. Absolutely. No doubt. I think in person is much more persuasive than online. So either be all virtual, which makes it more fair, or be in person if you can. But I've definitely found that, you can make the platform work for you. I had a deposition the other day that was done by some sort of platform, by a court reporter. And the doctor that I was deposing was very grumpy and he did not want to be there. And I knew I had an uphill battle and he was an adverse witness anyway, but I wanted to get some good testimony from him if I could. And so one of the ways that I tried to combat that, even though it started out a little bit not in my favor because he needed to run to his car to go get an ID to prove who he was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Virtual swearing.
But I think he ended up appreciating how efficient I was because all of my exhibits were ready to go. I knew exactly what page I wanted to refer him to. I knew which exhibit was coming next, which was related to my question. And that I ended up getting some positive testimony from him, even though I didn't expect it because I knew he was going to be an adverse witness. So there are some ways that you can kind of get around even not being in person, but still finding that rapport with the person that you're deposing, if you're prepared and ready to go, and show that you're not wasting their time, that you legitimately need information that they can provide, and just kind of make them aware of that from the beginning. I think
is this your KISS platform?
This is part of my KISS theory.
So tell me about your KISS theory.
So my theory was keep it simple, stupid, right? Yep. You've probably heard it before. I actually had to look up the background for that, and it's been coined by the late Kelly Johnson, who was a lead engineer for Lockhart Skunk Works, which was a company that created spy planes back in the day. And
keep it simple, stupid for a spy plane. That couldn't be more.
He knew that if they're flying planes in a war arena, that the mechanic who's fixing it not going to have access to really sophisticated tools. So whatever complicated machine they were building, a spy plane, needed to be easily fixed by someone in the field. So keeping it simple, stupid for that mechanic who's on the field was the best way to go.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Super.
So
cool.
how does that apply to Zoom, and WebEx and all of this stuff?
So as I was saying with that deposition, keeping it simple, straightforward, and prepared in a way that's easily digestible by the person that you're deposing, or even in hearings, making sure that you're ready to go, that you're well prepared, that you know how the platform works. So I had a hearing using WebEx, and I needed to use a presentation software. And so I had to literally go on YouTube to make sure that I would understand how to upload it appropriately and have it on the presentation mode instead of just the slide, my slide mode. And so I tried to practice on another platform because I didn't have access to this, just to make sure that I wasn't going to get caught up.
That's what you're doing your homework.
Exactly.
You can't keep it simple unless you make it. It's almost like it has to be complex on your end to make it simple. Though we talked about this with writing as well. Getting one paragraph versus 34 pages, it's harder to do the one paragraph.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Efficiency is extremely important, though. Trying to keep it as lean as possible and trying to make sure that you're moving things along in the way that it should is persuasive. Now, it might not have gone the whole way with me in my hearing, but I did end up with some relief from what I was arguing in that one with the presentation that I made. And then the doctor came around in the end. So you have some successes that way. And we've seen other lawyers who are not good with the platform and also use their assistants to put up their exhibits and then are like, hey, scroll down. It's so ineffective.
Distracting.
Yeah,
it's distracting.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about what you said, being prepared. Like, you always prepare for anything you're doing. But when you have a new platform like this or a different platform, it has different issues. So it's another level that you have to be prepared for. And thinking everything through like you did. It's smart to YouTube something that you don't know what to do. And then you become comfortable before you actually have to use it. I had a deposition last week where our opposing counsel had subpoenaed all these documents from the witness. And, he got lucky because we complied with the subpoena prior to the deposition. But if we had chosen to comply in an alternative way, which we could have, and had the witness bring all the documents to the deposition, I was there out of state with the witness in person, and our opposing counsel was in a different state connecting through Zoom. I don't know what he would have done if we'd had the witness bring all the documents to the deposition and just put them on the table. It would have been a disaster. And I know he didn't think that through. So it's just another example of you've got to be prepared in every potential possibility, anything that can happen when it's always, but with a new platform, it's one more level.
Yeah, we actually started doing virtual depositions
a long
time ago. Like, it had to have been 20 years ago that we started to, and we would do it
2002.
by video conference, right? I mean, like, it was, you had to go to a video conference location, and then the firms started getting their own video conferencing equipment that you could use in a conference room or whatever, and I learned very early on which lawyers I needed to ask of their witnesses if I was not appearing at the deposition in person. What did you bring with you? Where is it in the room with you? Because more than one lawyer had witnesses that would show up with notes, documents that they brought with them, and they just have them put them on the floor because you couldn't see them by the video conference. So you also have to know, just like any other time, you've got to know your opposing counsel. You have to know what kinds of tricks they might want to play, through the process. So I really, it's the kind of the digital equivalent of not fumbling and bumbling through your exhibits. You should not be fumbling and bumbling through your exhibits, even though now it's on a new platform, right? And you need to know who your opposition is and who your judge is so that you can present. I think, and I can't remember if you attended this hearing with me, Phoebe, you and I had a case that we had a motion to dismiss hearing, and we had a co-defense counsel who decided to piggyback on our motion to dismiss. And we were trying to keep our motion to dismiss very targeted and very simple. And he came in and he made his motion to dismiss very complicated. He sent a notebook to the judge in advance of the hearing. Unfortunately for him, a court of appeals opinion had just come out about the trial court not being able to rely on anything outside of the pleadings in ruling on a motion to dismiss. And he had put all this stuff into the notebook and sent it to the judge in advance. And he's trying to tell the judge where to go and what page behind tab number 1 He couldn't put anything up on the screen. And it was an unmitigated disaster. The judge got frustrated and he denied all of our motions, even though we should have won our motion.
Well, we said that though. I remember I had that summary judgment hearing in front of Lane Williamson when he was still on the bench. Judge Williamson at the time. Lane, I just talked to him yesterday, by the way. I'll tell you about it later. But anyway, and I walked in with a PowerPoint and he said to me, it was a summary judgment. He goes, "Oh, good, a picture show." He goes, "Well, you know, if you got to do that, there's got to be an issue of fact somewhere." Right? Because the whole question, and for those who may not be lawyers, the question on summary judgment is there a genuine issue of material fact?
Right.
So could a reasonable juror find a different fact pattern from the evidence? And so the point being that sometimes when things look really complex or feel complex to the bench, the automatic trigger is, well, clearly this is not, there's an issue somewhere in here.
Even
So
more
that's
now.
the keep it simple
Yeah,
stuff.
even more now when you've got the very distracting platform that you're on, it's even more crucial. I mean, that hearing that you mentioned, Sarah, is the one that really pronged this for me because he was
This
so
being this
ineffective.
podcast
This
idea,
keep,
yeah.
keep it simple, stupid, because he was so much more complex than we were. And also in another hearing, we were in the same thing. Our co-defendant made it that much more complicated and not as clear. And so we didn't get the outcome that we were hoping for. And I'm hoping that people, take it a little bit better and become. But I think there's good things about these platforms too. I mean, it's a lot easier. There's less travel time. It's less expensive for
it
your
saves the client
clients.
a lot of money.
And that's great as long as you can use it the right way. But for judges, it can be very frustrating. They can't ask the questions that they want, that you don't have the nonverbal cues that kind of tell you where you should stop and where you should begin. And that makes it that much more complicated, and then you have to look at yourself the entire time, which is distracting.
Oh yeah.
There's no way to turn that off. I've tried and there's no way to do it. Have you found that the behaviors of any of your opposing counsel have been impacted or changed because they're only seeing you virtually as opposed to having to see you face to face on a regular basis?
I don't know that I've seen that completely. I mean, I think the people that are going to be jerks are still jerks. I mean, we've had one that used profanity when he didn't have his mute button on about counsel. And that was unpleasant. Yes, Sarah.
Said some very nice words about me.
Whatever he said, I'm sure you've been called worse.
I probably have, but
This was pretty bad.
it was pretty bad.
Really?
It was
Pretty
pretty
bad.
And our clients were on.
Yeah.
It was a deposition and we were taking a break and the clients were attending the deposition. And I mean, he cussed me out after we started the break. And literally Phoebe was, I think you were at home attending from home and I was in the office attending the deposition remotely in the office. And I called you to ask you a question about something and what to do after the break with the witness. And I heard him cussing me out while I was on the phone with Phoebe. I'm like, Phoebe, excuse me for just a second. And I said, excuse me, thank you for the kind words, but you're not muted. Oh, he turned so red. It was great.
My mom used to always say, don't say stuff behind people's back you can't say to their face.
That's right. Yeah.
So if I'm going to cuss somebody out, I'm going to be able to do it to their face.
There you go.
I don't know if he's yet gotten to that point where he wants to cuss you out in your face, but it's definitely, there's no love lost there. And it hasn't changed much over the platform.
No. And I'll just continue to make sure I wear really high heels every time I see him. In any event, what about attire? Have you noticed a change in how people are dressing on Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed,
think
I've
that's a
had some
true
lawyers that
period.
have shown up for hearings by Zoom and they don't even have a tie, male lawyers without a tie on.
Oh, yeah.
I
I've seen
mean,
that too.
I've been kind of astonished at how casual it's gotten.
Well, the judges aren't wearing, I'm thinking in my head, I don't think the judges are wearing robes.
Yeah,
all the
they
time.
are.
Are they?
Every hearing
even
I've
when they're
had,
at
there's
home.
been a
I'm
robe.
I'm trying to remember.
They have
Yeah.
robes on
Maybe
when I've
I'm
seen them.
just,
Yeah.
maybe I just wasn't paying attention because I see it so much.
There's
but-
one judge that's even created curtains behind him
Yes,
to make
he
it
has.
look more like the courtroom.
What do you think about those?
I think
the
that's
virtual
kind
backgrounds.
Oh, no. This is
this is
actual
real.
real
for
curtains.
real? Like real?
He's like
hung up.
Yeah, he comes through them.
Get out.
Oh, it's fun.
What a grand entrance.
Funniest
I love
thing
that.
you've
What a
ever
grand
seen.
entrance. It's such a grand
It's
entrance.
really kind of funny.
I saw
Yeah.
a virtual background last night of the Supreme Court Library, and I hadn't seen that one, and he looked very important and formal. And I thought, I need to do that next time.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It's better if it's a formal proceeding or you're trying to make that type of impression. It's probably better to choose something like that than the ocean.
The laundry disc.
Or like the palm trees floating. It's nice, but probably not for the hearing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't use like a marketing logo. Like we have an LD logo that you can use as a background that we've given to everybody, that you can pick from your virtual backgrounds, at least in Zoom. I don't know about the other platforms, but I wouldn't use that for a hearing.
I don't use them anyway because they're distracting.
I don't like
you
them.
end up coming in
They're
and out
abstracts.
of your. Yeah, I don't like it. I think it becomes really distracting.
You've got like that outline around you.
Yeah, it looks like you're being evaporated or something.
Sometimes, yes, particularly if you don't have good bandwidth.
Exactly.
I think
Is that what it is?
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah. I think that makes a huge difference. Absolutely. So do you think that we're going to continue to do things in this format going forward?
I think there'll be some things that it makes more sense to do it this way. And then other things, not so much. I mean, I think the judge's preferences will mostly be to have in-person proceedings.
Do you think?
For a lot of the really important ones. But for other things, I mean, I've had 2 federal judges say that they can't even ask questions. Like it's so hard for them to even try to
Break
stop
in.
someone. Yeah. And so that just that kind of wastes their time a little bit, and no one wants that.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I have felt, and I this has not been a scientific study by any stretch of the imagination, but I have felt like some hearings have gone much longer than they would have gone if we were in person.
Absolutely.
And whether that's slowed because of the way somebody's presenting something to the court, or slowed because the court doesn't know how to jump in and cut people off and ask questions to shorten the arguments up, or it's just technologically so hard to do that. So I have felt like things have taken longer than they otherwise would have.
I would agree. I think it's harder to go ahead.
I'll say one time I had a hearing for a motion to compel. There were probably 5 things my opposing counsel wanted from me. We had a little bit of a delay waiting for the judge to get on. And while we were waiting, we knocked 3 of the 5 out because it was just the 2 of us sitting there
Waiting.
chit-chatting at first. And then we started talking about the motion. And, when you have 2 reasonable people working on something, you often can get it resolved. And it was really the first time we'd ever talked about some of the issues that were part of the motion. Judge got on, very, very brief hearing because we only had 2 things that he had to address. He was very appreciative also.
Oh, they always like it when you can work together. That's kind of, we're all adults. We should be able to work together. And for those that don't know, motion to compel is when one side is asking you for documents or videos or photos, and they're trying to get that stuff from you. And that was what your motion was trying to ask you for stuff.
So we had a compromise.
Yeah.
We talked about why he wanted it, what he was trying to get. And we were able to, I said, I'll give you that, but what about not giving you this or limiting the time frame? Very efficient.
Yeah.
That's great. So when are we going to start trying cases again? I mean, we haven't had a trial. Like, we are trial lawyers. That's what we do. And God bless Phoebe. In her 3 years, she joined us to try cases, and every case she has touched has resolved itself before it went to trial.
I got a couple I'd love to push
special
on then.
skill.
Well, one of those years was COVID, so we're going to give it a little leeway with that. But it would be really nice to know when we're gonna get back to doing that. What are y'all's thoughts on that? When do you think we'll get back to it?
I think it's going to be a slow rollout. I think it's still a little unclear right now. The virus, as you know, has been very unpredictable. And I don't think it will necessarily be the same everywhere, which is going to make it a little difficult in some ways because
Everybody's going by their own rules.
Yes.
Yeah. Every
Yes.
county's making their own decisions, right? So
Yes.
it's hard for us to have consistency to know what to expect.
I'm a little more hopeful since the vaccine is rolling out faster than we anticipated. I think we'll get in the courtroom quicker than I expected. I mean, I didn't really think we'd
Knock
get
on
there
wood.
until next year, but I'm thinking more and more that it's going to be this year at some point, whether it's the summer or the fall.
Yeah, I think I was telling people, clients in particular, who have cases in our home county, Mecklenburg County, which is where our office is located, that I didn't think we'd try a civil jury trial of any length in Mecklenburg County until 2022. what that will look like is going to be kind of an open question if we all still have to be behind plexiglass and those sorts of things. I will say Heather and I had our first in-person hearing in Mecklenburg County about 3.5, 4 weeks ago.
Did they make you wear a mask to argue?
Yes.
To argue? To argue?
Oh,
Yes.
God, you gotta
wait.
speak so much louder.
Oh my God.
What?
We walked
in a
in
box.
and there was plexiglass and you literally are sitting in a plexiglass
Like huge.
box. I felt like I was in jail by the end of the day, and we did have to wear masks. That was one of because Mecklenburg County wasn't open for in-person
Right.
anything when we did this, but all of the parties wanted it to be in person. The judge agreed to do it in person. And so, but yeah, we had to wear masks.
God, that's so impersonal.
6.5 hours
Oh my.
of hearing. The poor court reporter, because I think a lot of people don't
Yeah,
realize that
that's
court
really
reporters
hard.
don't just hear what
Right.
you're saying, but they read lips as
Yes.
part of their process of taking down what people are saying. I mean, and we
I feel
had
sorry
some
for them,
names in
too.
that case that were very difficult to pronounce and understand. God bless her. I mean, I felt so bad for her by the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But we I think had a link, a share file link sent to her with all of the
That was
pleadings
nice.
and deposition transcripts and stuff so that she could try and search through those things to get to some of the words that she
shout out to the
need.
court reporters. Seriously, like they really have. This has been between Zoom and all that, and then the masks and all of this, and they really have. Their jobs have been so much harder, and we rely on them so much, and they're so important.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
call.
any particular exceptional hearing, deposition, something that you thought went particularly really well or particularly really badly?
I mean, I had one hearing that I kept trying to schedule for over a year that should have gone away. If COVID had not happened, it would have been maybe a 15-minute hearing in person, and it would have been resolved. It is because the plaintiff is pro se, and we had great difficulty getting him served. We had the hearing finally scheduled. He didn't show up.
Oh boy.
We had to have it continued again. We went through all of that, the layers and layers of getting another hearing. I mean, went to the ends of the earth to serve him in every possible way we could.
Pro se means they represent themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He did get served. We had the hearing, and he ended up not attending through a video platform, even though I think the capability may have been there. It's confusing to people.
Yeah.
To give him the benefit of the doubt, he appeared by phone. Again, it should have been a quick hearing. I think because of all of these layers that made it even more difficult for the court to feel like he was getting his fair time and being heard. Unfortunately, it's still straggling along.
He gave him 60 days to get something in. Yep.
So what are our takeaways, Phoebe?
I'd say,
Closing argument. What are your points?
well, one of them is making sure that you are in the right atmosphere with the right lighting. Make sure you're prepared and ready to go, that things are streamlined to the extent that you can, and to anticipate things that are going to come up that you don't expect and try to get ahead of them before it happens.
Very similar to trial prep, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It's
same
just one
kind
more
of stuff.
layer.
Yeah.
And I guess keeping in mind the keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
So that's true in a lot of different areas of life and practice.
For sure. I mean, and if you're talking to a judge, keeping it simple for them is important, almost just as important
for everybody.
as it is for jurors, right? Because they haven't lived with the case. I mean, most people probably don't know that we live in a jurisdiction where our judges ride the circuit. So we don't have the same judge for
They go to different courthouses.
multiple motions in the same case, because every 6 months our judges rotate to a different county. And so, they're getting thrown in and hearing motions on, sometimes 10, 15, 20 cases a week. And they've never even heard of the case before. So, simplifying it for them is huge. And as we know, trying cases in front of juries, it's also really important.
Yeah.
Because we've lived with it for so long.
Right.
Sometimes we forget that everybody else hasn't lived with it for as long as we have.
And as Phoebe and I were talking about earlier, it's harder to keep it simple than it is to make it convoluted. And so really, going back to talking about the last episode with Sally, the art of what we do a lot of times is in finding the brevity, finding the simplicity in it. So,
Absolutely.
How about the verdict, Sarah? Your turn.
My turn. Verdict.
Yeah.
We had talked about doing something a little bit different on the
Did
verdict
we?
today. Yeah. And
Okay. Well, I don't know about
kind
that.
of
Surprise
saying
me.
tell us what you think one of us is guilty of doing. And we could use it just the Zoom platform if you want to do the Zoom platform, and go from there. So
Don't. Why are you looking at me?
oh,
You think I'm guilty of something?
I would bet that Tricia is guilty of testing a platform and not realizing that when she was testing it, she was actually going live into the courtroom where the judge was on the bench.
Did I do that?
You did do
When?
that. Business court.
I don't
Do you not
remember
remember Judge Robinson?
Oh no, I forgot all about this.
Yeah. And
What did I do?
The clerk gave you the link to
Yeah.
test the platform out.
Yeah.
This was early in COVID. Like,
Well, give me a little
I wanna
credit. Thank you for saying that.
it had to have been the first week.
So-
and you the clerk sent you the link and said, just test to make sure you
I
can
think
use
I
it in
cussed,
advance.
maybe.
And yes, you did. And you were like, holy, trying to get off. And the judge was on while you were doing it. And
Yeah. Thank
was-
you.
yeah.
Now I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway.
well, you can return the favor.
I'm trying to think of something. Somebody else go. I'm trying to think of something good. I'm going to get you back.
I don't know. I think all of us are a little guilty of being more casual than they
Yeah.
would have otherwise. Maybe not to the inappropriate nature, but definitely more casual than we were before COVID arose. But that's something about making sure we're comfortable through such a trying and weird time. So it makes sense completely.
Yeah.
Heather,
I will admit that what I have done on occasion is sometimes I'm distracted
by the other monitor
or by other things.
Email.
I mean, yeah.
That's what our kids are doing in school, too.
Multitasking, which sometimes is a very good thing. But when I'm in a deposition and I'm
Right.
with witness, I am focused and listening. And when I'm in my office alone, sometimes I'm distracted by emails coming in or, something else that really should not be getting my attention at that moment.
Oh, I have one. I know what you're guilty of, Sarah.
What did I do?
Talking really, really loud in the hallway.
But that doesn't have
When
anything
I'm
to do
on
with
Zoom
Oh,
and you're
when
talking
on Zoom.
so loud. Sarah talks so loud. Like I'll be in my office. If my door's not shut, I'm typing and I start typing what she's saying.
But you put up the signs now.
Oh, I have. Yes, we're
Zoom in progress?
We're working on it.
Yes.
We're working on it.
Or
We're working on it.
quiet.
Quiet zone.
We're working on it. So
I
anyway.
won't be very good at that. I'm just saying.
I know.
I try. It's the
know.
New York in me. You can't get it
I know.
out.
I know.
Well, it works with the mask.
True that.
People can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good thing.
So their verdict, like
Yeah.
the audience's verdict, we still need that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So please give us comments, questions that you
Ratings,
want
reviews,
answered,
listen,
ratings.
download.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that good stuff. We are now on, I think, pretty much every platform
A lot
where
of
you can
them.
find your podcasts.
Yep.
Thanks, Phoebe and Heather, for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sign off.